underwent to become paperless is probably going to be a little different than the one that you would take, and it's actually was harder. So it was a little different, it was a little harder. The way to do it today is pretty easy and pretty simple, and the choices you need to make to keep things simple, sensible, and smooth are pretty obvious. And the things that can take you astray from that, we can talk about as well. But while the process may be different for you than it was for me, the results that you're going to experience will be the same. And for me, basically, the results were a vastly greater sense of freedom. I mean, I had much greater flexibility in how I practice law, what I could do, where I could do it from, and that is really, I think, the big umbrella under which all of the other benefits lie. So once lawyers say, okay, I get it, I probably should be paperless, I want to be paperless, I see that there's a way to do it, I still have some questions, and I've heard all of the questions, so we're just going to go through these questions. So the first question that lawyers always ask me is, well, what is a paperless law practice? And we're going to talk about that. But what they really mean, and they quickly come to this, is, well, isn't it impossible to get rid of all paper? And the answer is, yes, it is impossible to get rid of all paper, but that is not the goal. The goal here is not to get rid of all paper, because our goal is not to have a paperless law office. Our goal is to have a more efficient law practice, right, and to keep things smooth and sensible as we transition. So the goal is to do whatever makes sense at the time. So we're trying to not get rid of all paper, but diminish the amount of paper that we rely on smoothly and steadily till ultimately one day we wind up in a situation where we have very little paper to keep track of. So the next question that lawyers ask is, well, surely some documents are required to be in paper format. And what are those documents? So the obvious one would be like a will. And I would predict that pretty soon it will be possible to have a will that's not in paper form. But for the most part, that seems to be something that we really want to be in paper form. And you will find that a lot of the things that people think they have to have in paper format, they think that because there's a deep human need for the ritual involved with paper. So, wills are one thing. And then there's some other things that we can talk about, which would vary perhaps from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And I know, Josh, you have some ideas on this, so maybe you want to address some of these questions at this point.
Absolutely. So we've done some research into this based on some questions that came to us earlier from people who registered asking about their own various jurisdictions. One person asked about Ontario. So we did some research in Ontario, and it was very interesting that they don't actually